Hey there, welcome to your first official American History 2 lesson. So today we're going to be doing Unit 1, Lesson 1 on Western migration. So when you left off with American History 1, the Civil War had ended and Reconstruction was taking place and the people were trying to move past the Civil War, and that's kind of where we're going to be picking up. There's going to be a little bit of like area that's going to overlap a little bit, stuff that you may have covered in American History 1. So it should be really easy for you. Just as a reminder, you only have to be watching this video if you were absent from our team's meeting. If you were present, then we already went over this together, and so you don't have to worry about it. Um, or you're more than welcome to watch it if you're just wanting to review and go over this stuff again. But this is only required for people who were absent from class. So let's get on with what the notes are today, and then I'll talk to you about your assignment. So Western migration, of course, is going to be the movement of people. But in order to discuss this, we need to talk about what is the difference between migration and immigration. We know that immigration is going to be when people leave one country and move to another country. So migration is going to be the movement of people actually within that country. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. We'll actually talk about immigration and the movement of people into a new country from another later in this unit. But today our focus is really on like, why did people that were living in North Carolina decide to move out west? That is going to be what we're talking about. So let's get into that. Why exactly did people go out and migrate and change where they were living? And to do this, you really need to understand the difference between push and pull factors. Now, you should have learned about these in American History 1. You should have learned about these in world history, but let's just do a little review. Push factors are going to be things that are going to push people away from where they are living at the time. These can be environmental issues, social issues, economic or political issues. So these can be things like poverty, like I'm poor, so I don't want to live here anymore. I want to move somewhere where I can make more money. I'm scared for my life. It isn't safe where I'm living. There are natural disasters that are happening. I don't have a job. So these are going to be things that push you out of where you're currently living, and the pull factors are going to be what brings you to where you decide to go. So if I'm leaving North Carolina and I'm deciding to move to Oklahoma, the push factors are making me leave North Carolina. The pull factors are what tell me Oklahoma is a good place to go. So this could be that it is safer and it isn't dangerous for me. There's opportunity for me to be able to make money there and to have some economic freedom. There's stability and safety and freedom for me out there. So all of these things are going to be things that make me want to go to Oklahoma, for example. So let's talk about migration specifically in the late 1800s, what the push factors were for the people and what the pull factors were. Why did they decide to move out west? Those push factors were that there was a lack of jobs with so much immigration happening, which we will get to, like I said, later in this unit. There's more and more people living, especially in the East Coast. And so there's a lack of jobs that are available. So people are starting to move out west to find that opportunity. Because of that immigration as well, we're seeing overcrowding in cities, really poor sanitation, awful conditions to live in. A lot of people also lacked rights after the Civil War was over and slaves were freed. It's not like poof, all of a sudden, all of these Black Americans were going to be treated equally, but they knew that there could possibly be opportunity for them out west. Or for women, for example, there were more opportunities and more respect that they could get out west as well. Again, money's going to usually be a huge factor as well. And so the economy, especially in the South, was really bad after the Civil War because it had been all torn up because we fought a war there. And so people were like, you know what, I want to leave here. I want to go find other opportunities. So those pull factors, the things that brought people out west was the fact that there were job opportunities. You could go work on building the railroad. You could go and get some land and start farming. You could mine and possibly strike it rich and find some gold. Um, there was, as I just said, tales of silver and gold, especially out in California when you get the gold rush that happens. And that's in 1849, before the Civil War even happened. So like I said, some of our time here is going to overlap, but these are the reasons that people were moving out west. There was lots of land that was either completely free or very, very cheap. And then you were also going to have some people that knew that they could get religious freedom in this area. So the Mormons specifically were feeling attacked where they were, that they couldn't practice their religion as they wanted. And so they moved out west and then set up camp basically over in Utah. And to this day, there's a lot of Mormons that live in Utah because of that initial migration that took place. One of the things that I said also over here was lack of rights for women. Women weren't allowed to vote at this time, but some of those Western states were actually allowing women to be able to vote because they needed more people to vote. They needed a higher population. And then there's going to be less discrimination in these areas as well. So these are all going to be things that are going to pull people to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to go move out west. So, as I said, one of the things you could do is go and work on the railroads. The effects of the railroads ends up being really, really critical. The railroads were essentially built mostly by Chinese, Irish, African Americans, Mexicans, and then some Civil War veterans after the war was over. But you're noticing that there's a lot of immigrants, a lot of people from other countries that are coming and doing this really, really hard work. Like that's why my Bitmoji here is talking about sweating. Like you've heard the song probably before, that I've been working on the railroad all the live long day, right? So they were out working day after day after day, laying those tracks across the entire country, up to 8 miles a day. The Union Pacific Railroad and then the Central Pacific Railroad were finally going to meet each other in Utah in the spring of 1869, giving us a transcontinental railroad, meaning transcontinental. This is the United States here. We're going all the way across the United States now. That is huge in terms of transportation and being able to get resources in places. By the mid 1880s, we had 5 different transcontinental railroads. So, as you can imagine, these railroads popping up are going to make it easier for people to move out west. It's going to make it more desirable for people to move out west because now they would have the ability to have access to resources, or if they're farming, for example, then the crops that they are farming, it's easier to get them back to other places to be sold because they can put them on the railroad and then send them on their way. So all of these things makes the West more appealing because it does give them this access. One of the other pull factors that I told you about was the fact that land was either going to be free or cheap. And one of the reasons this happens is because of the passing of a law called the Homestead Act. Now, the Homestead Act sold up to 160 acres of land to people 21, let me rewind that, to men 21 years of age or older that had not taken arms up against the United States, meaning that they weren't a part of the Confederacy. We didn't want to reward those Confederates that had basically fought against the United States. So this law was passed as a way to encourage families to move out west. It was extremely successful. We see over 600,000 people move out west because they've got this opportunity to get this cheap land. This is going to draw lots of African Americans after the Civil War as well. These people were known as exodusters because they were exiting, like a mass exodus of people leaving and then moving out to the Great Plains out in the West. Most of the African Americans that moved, and I'll show you a picture in just a minute, were going to move a lot of them to Kansas because Kansas was really trying to do some advertising to say, hey, come out here and get it. So here we just got a little meme. The Homestead Act of 1862, so passed during the Civil War. Head west and we'll give you free land. And you can see the meme here is trying to make the joke that like everybody was on board to go out and do that. So here's another advertisement, or not another, but here is an advertisement to try and get people to move out west. This is from 1869, Nebraska, the Garden of the West. They're telling people, look, we've got all of this grain and grazing land, 50 million acres of land. You can get this land super cheap. So $1.25 per acre. Obviously, that would be worth more today, but still not a whole lot of money. So by comparison, today, an acre of land in the United States costs about $3,000 to $4,000. So we're talking super, super cheap land here. This is also going to have a pretty big negative effect on the Native Americans as we're moving out west. We're going to talk more about that in tomorrow's lesson, but Native Americans are really going to struggle because the white Americans just go out and say, hey, there's this land. we're just going to take it. And so they're giving out this Indian land for people to be able to buy. So here's another meme, Oprah, the you get Indian land, you get Indian land. This meme jokes, but I need you to know how awful it was that we treated Native Americans. And as I said, we'll talk more about that in our next lesson. So let's talk a little bit about those exodusters. So these are the African Americans that were, oops, let me go back. I hit too many times. Oh, I hit the wrong back. Hold on. I'm just gonna hop back into, I don't know how I did that. I hit the wrong back button. Just hold on, here we go. I'm not gonna go and record the whole video all over again just because of one little mess up. So just give me a second to get there. Okay. So here we go. So the exodusters, as I said, were African Americans that were moving out west once the war was over. And I told you a minute ago, a lot of them would move to Kansas. So here's an advertisement saying, like, all colored people that want to go to Kansas, you can do so for $5. Now, $5 in 1877 is going to be about $115 today. That was actually really hard for these newly freed people to be able to get their hands on. So it would take a lot of commitment to decide, like, this is what we want to do. So you can see a picture here, though, some exodusters, large group of, like, a large family moving together. You can see they don't have very much. They obviously don't have a lot of money, but they're trying to go and achieve what is to them the new American dream now that they are free. One of the other reasons that I told you that people were going out west was specifically women in these Western states. A lot of them were able to vote. So you can see this is from the state of Wyoming. And it says that every woman of the age of 21 years residing in this territory may at every election to be holden under the law thereof, cast her vote. So this was in 1869. Now, women across the entire United States don't get the right to vote until 1920. So we're talking about 50 years earlier, women were being allowed to vote. And so that gives women a lot of desire to say, hey, I want to go out there because I can have some more influence in that area. This map right here just kind of shows you how the population was spreading. Green areas were settled by 1870, and then you can see it kind of spreads out as more and more people are moving into these areas. So when people got in their wagons and they moved out west, it wasn't like it was going to be really, really easy for them. So there were challenges of actually going out west, and then there were challenges they had to face once they got there. So the travel was very slow. They had a very severe lack of food. A lot of people would starve, some of them starving to death on their travel. Disease was really, really rampant. It was very easy to get sick and not be able to recover from it. There was severe weather out in the plains. They're known for their tornadoes and bad storms and stuff like that. So you were dealing with that. And then just the overall fear of Native Americans and people being scared that they could be attacked by the quote unquote red man at any time. Once they did set up, there's going to be a lack of wood in the plains. And so people are going to have to find other means to actually build their homes. And they start doing it with like mud and grass and create these sod houses. I'll show you a picture of them in just a second. It was very isolated and lonely. I mean, these were literally little houses on the prairie. They were like in the middle of nowhere. Your next neighbor might not be, 5 miles away. So it wasn't like the city where you could see all kinds of people out in the east in those more urban areas. This is going to be very, very isolated. The soil was difficult to be able to farm. It wasn't the best for them to be able to be successful with. So to show you how they would travel, again, I said that they would get in their wagons. They would have a couple horses, maybe have some cows or something with them. And the family would travel together by wagon until they got to their final destination. And then those sod houses that I talked about, like this is what the houses look like. You can see they literally have stuff growing on their house. It's made out of just what was available in the area. And because there weren't a lot of trees, you couldn't just build these homes out of wood like a lot of houses would be doing. So move to the Great Plains, they said. It's gonna be a better life, they said. Obviously, It's not going to be great and that easy of a life, but they wanted to go out and try to make it work. And then, as I said, the farming was going to be really difficult. So here you can see some of the soil being tilled with some of the technology of the day, basically. So this was really, really difficult land to be able to farm in. And they had to learn and figure out how to grow crops in those areas. So the last thing I want to talk about, the last slide in this set of notes, is that you can see that these paintings from 1867, 66, and 68 all paint a very, very different picture of what I just showed you in comparison to what it was, what they're depicting in this picture. This picture makes it look like, or these pictures make it look like it's this grand, beautiful area, very lush. Obviously this has color and the pictures were in black and white, but you get the point that these kind of romanticize what life was like. So people in the East would see these paintings and be like, oh, this is beautiful. This is what I want to go and achieve. The reality of it wasn't always that great and wasn't always the same. So let's talk about what you need to do for your very first assignment for this class. So what you are going to do is, now that you're done with the video, you need to go and complete this Unit 1, Lesson 1, Diary of Westward Travel assignment. So you're going to open up this reading, which is not a difficult read. It is a diary. You're going to read through this. It's just a few pages long, and it's not difficult, as I said, to read. And then you're going to answer these questions. So what I'm going to do is click on this document here. It's going to ask me to make a copy of it. I'm going to say yes and make that copy. And then when it comes up, I'm going to have my questions that pop up here. I ask that whenever you're typing questions like this, please do it in a different color. I cannot express how much easier it is and how much it helps when I'm grading it. So make sure you answer this question, by the way. A lot of people forget to answer number 1 because they just see this and they go on. But this is question number 1, and then go down. You only have 8 questions to answer. So you read the diary, you answer the questions, and then you submit it through Canvas. If you are a Spanish speaker, I have a Spanish version of the diary here because you can't copy and paste this one over into Google Docs or into Google Translate. So if you need a Spanish version of the diary to help you, then I have that here for you. And I'll try to do that whenever possible when I have things that you can't copy and paste over into Google Translate.
Hi, it is now time to dismiss our students who were here for exams today. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry for the interruption there, but again, I'm not going to go and completely refilm this. So you're going to do this diary entry, and then you're going to submit that, and then that brings you to the end of today's notes, or today's lesson. The page back here, it's not posted yet, but it will be by the time you get to it. You're going to have a little section down here where this video was posted, and then you are going to see a form underneath it called the lesson demonstration form. If you were absent from the Teams meeting, you need to fill out that form so that I can go back and switch you and mark you as present. It can't just be like, oh, I popped on the Canvas anymore. So you got to go watch, you have to watch this video, you have to fill out that form and give me some reflection on the lesson and complete your assignment. So with that being said, if you need anything at all, let me know. Just get in touch with me and I will see you for our next lesson. Bye, y'all.